Hey legends, and welcome back to the channel where we're cutting a few kilowatts and dropping a few pounds of downforce. Today marks the release of Assetto Corsa Competizione's hotly anticipated GT4 pack. Arriving within this pack are a whopping 11 GT4 cars, making this one of, if not the most complete GT4 sim on the market. So you may be wondering, this game is a GT3 sim, so why would I pay extra money to get a bunch of cars which are both slower and less nimble? Well, because fun. Not only will this allow you to have some awesome mixed class races, but it will also allow you to enjoy ACC's 10 meticulously laser scanned circuits at a slightly different pace. Constituting the 11 GT4 cars are the Alpine A110, Audi R8 LMS, Aston Martin V8 Vantage, BMW M4, Chevrolet Camaro, Ginetta J55, KTM Crossbow, Maserati Gran Turismo MC, McLaren 570S, Mercedes AMG, and the Porsche 718 Cayman ClubSport. Because the base feature set of this DLC has already been covered by the channels that were given pre-release copies and have had a few weeks to get their material together, we're instead going to go about this a little differently. The inclusion of the Ginetta J55 opens up a wonderful opportunity for us, as the newly released Automobilista 2 recently added this car to its roster. You all know what this means. Head-to-head shootout at Mount Panorama. Before we jump to it, make sure to hit the sub to stay up to date with future sim racing news and reviews, including of course major content for ACC and AMS2. Now, let's shoot these cars out. So we're starting off with AMS2 in the Ginetta J55 obviously, and your first question is probably, Ermin, is this like driving the real thing? And even though I can't technically answer that question for you, seeing as I've never driven one of these in the real world, I can still say no, it probably isn't, because I just came from the time trial boards and all the top times were being set with the rear wing pretty much off. So, all the fun that you know of the rFactor 2 GT3 car model. So, driving model, AMS2, still needs a lot of work. One other flaw I thought I found earlier was that I thought I was getting quicker times with cold tires, but turns out I actually wasn't. They were about equivalent. There are a lot of very kind of bizarre things going on, so with that aside, ACC is quite likely going to be the more realistic experience. We've gotten that out of the way. Now, we can get to the part of it where it's like, okay, what's it like to drive on the limit? Is it fun? And my unequivocal answer to that is yes. When I first drove this car in this track, when 1.0 first came out, this was where I said to myself, AMS2 currently has the best force feedback in the business. Because this car, on this track, having it on the limit is one of the most joyful sim racing experiences I've ever had. And you can it's always inviting you to play with it on the limit. You can see, even with the virtual wheel there, I'm always just kind of micro-correcting, trying to get it in the sweet spot, something that I can never quite do as nicely in ACC, and I know that's something a few other YouTubers agree with me on. I just saw Mike from Sim Racing 604's review of ACC, and he mentioned a similar thing about finding it difficult to drive on the limit when playing ACC, simply because you can't really feel the limit that well and you can't really control the car as easily when it exceeds that limit. That aside, ACC is probably going to be the vastly more accurate experience, so I'm looking forward to that. But in this game, it feels so playful, so dynamic, and so fun that, you know, even if it were nothing like the real Ginetta on Bathurst, I would still recommend grabbing it because it's just so much fun. I'm not doing an AI race. Anyone that has tried the AI in its current state will know exactly why that is. AMS2 is a game that in its present state is in need of a lot of love, and I sincerely hope Reza provide that love. But for the time being, as an experience, as a pure, just fun driving experience you can experience by yourself with a couple of close friends in private lobbies, this is a game I absolutely love for that. Now, I'm not sure if GT4 cars have perma assists. They have to stay on. I think I've heard something to that effect. I probably should have researched it. See, this is where I would do the Q Jimmy research cut had I the editing skills, but I don't, so I'm just going to push on ahead and assume that they can't be turned off. And so far in this car, I'm finding that keeping the TC higher is actually helping me out. Now, higher in this engine actually being lower, so bear with me. In Project Cars 2, the amount of traction control you have... let me just get past this. There we go. Nice and fun. With no TC there, you tend to go spinneroony. So the higher your TC, the less assist you have. And the lower the TC, the less TC is interfering. However, ABS works completely in the opposite direction, where the more ABS you have, the more ABS tends to kick in. And the less ABS you have, the more the tires tend to lock when you brake. So, figure that one out, right? Unless Reza have changed this overnight, and I'm not privy to this information, but I know that Project Cars 2 always function that way on the Madness engine. And one thing I think you guys are going to find that we're going to compare a little bit later on is the way this car looks from the exterior on these shots. Absolutely amazing. This engine just renders that dynamism of driving so well. Even if the figures themselves aren't particularly accurate, even if you can like fudge the aero by killing the rear sway bar and just kind of caning all the time trial times, I'm sure they'll fix that in time, or at least I hope they will. Maybe it's some kind of fatal flaw in the Madness engine, who knows? I certainly hope not. But yes, so far I can say that if you want the most authentic experience, AMS2 is probably not for you, notwithstanding that this is currently the only GT4 car in the game, and so until they pad it out with all the rest, this is about the only car you can have on your GT4 grid. So, hope you guys enjoyed those 2 laps as much as I did. This game continues to be one of the most fun and joyful when it comes to driving on the limit. I absolutely adore it for that. It may not always be the most realistic, but it certainly gives you a bang for buck when it comes to sheer fun and enthusiasm. So let's move on to ACC and try out this new GT4 pack. Alright, ACC Ginetta J55 at Mount Panorama. Let's see how it compares.
Green light, show them what you got.
First off, I've got to say I appreciate both games modeling the correct driving position, the right-hand drive position, especially down here in the southern hemisphere. And we'll see how far we have to actually stay away from curbs, indeed. Just going to kill the HUD so we don't have to look at that. We're trying to come to grips with where the ideal tire temps are in this class in this game. I'm hearing somewhere around 27, maybe slightly lower. We'll see how we go. Alright, so the first thing I can tell you is that the rear end is a lot more connected in this game. The car actually feels like a cohesive unit. You generally know where you're positioning it. So I only had to counter steer there a lot because I came in too hot. In AMS, you kind of just have to do that all the time. It entirely feels like driving a different vehicle, to be honest. Because in AMS, it's just the rear end is completely disconnected. It's just sliding all over the place. You just can't keep it under control, and that's with the rear wing quite high. And what we're running here is the aggressive setup with slightly tweaked tire temps, and that's got the rear wing at 1 point, and it's just way more stable. So, very different driving model between both games. Feels very much like driving a completely different car. I will say the brake points are completely different as well. This car has way better brakes. You're going to see me brake at the, I think, 100 meter board coming up, whereas in AMS, it's pretty much like another 25 meters back I have to brake from. Popping out at the rev limiter here. Gearing is a little bit different between the games, so at 100 meter board, bam! Would not have made that in AMS, at least not with my brake. Maybe I can get the headlights on, there we go. Alright, so that was our outlap. Yep, so much more connected on that last turn. I'd be sliding all over the place in AMS. Once again, we'll try and brake at the 50-meter board here. Or maybe just slightly before. Just slightly before. Still better brake performance than AMS. I'm not entirely sure where the tire temps are at right now. I might just check quickly. 26, so they're not up to temp yet. It seems like you need about 2 laps on Mountain Panorama to get them there. That's alright. That's what we're here for. Put these cars to the test. And I've got to say, really impressed by the track model in both games. You almost can't tell that it's not laser scanned in AMS, but you do get a bit more of that micro bump detail in this one. Not sure what's happening with my lines there, my apologies. Car just altogether easier to control in the ascent. But perhaps, as you can see, I'm still a little less likely to drive it on the same limit. It's certainly better than the GT3 cars are in ACC in that sense. But I'm still not as likely to keep it right on that feather edge as I am in AMS and rFactor. That's largely because of the response of the force feedback is still a little bit vague and nebulous. The loss of grip is still a little bit vague and nebulous. It pushes my rig to its limits, so I have a very flimsy setup right now. A lot of flex. I'm basically in a rocking chair, so every time I apply the brake I go back. It's absolutely awful. And ACC, because of its uncompromising force feedback and handling model, really highlights that. So I understand that part of this is the fault of my own rig, which I shall rectify promptly. Let's try third. Oh, it's a little ambitious, but it can be done. So that's pretty good. I managed to keep it on the edge there, keep the car on without losing too much time. That would have been very difficult in the GT3s. Bit of a late apex there. Bad camber. Okay, not the lap time of the gods, but I'm running times that are basically quicker than my AMS 2 times already, even without having tweaked the car or having really warmed up into the race. So altogether more connected, feels more like a race car. I drove against the AI in the McLaren earlier, and that whole experience is vastly better than AMS. So it's no contest, basically. They still need a bit of work on human awareness. I got pit maneuvered a few times, as you do by AI. But on the whole, a vastly better experience than AMS's dancing, crazy AI. Wonder if I can get one lap that doesn't suck. Nope, no I can't.
Some light damage on the front.
So that's one crazy thing. The car feels way more connected, but the way that you drive it around the track feels completely different. So what happened there would not have happened in AMS. I was using the same inputs and it just kind of stepped out on me. Just kind of understeered out when I didn't expect it to. It's the force feedback engine and the driving engine is so different between the two games. It's literally like driving a different car in a different class. So I should probably summarize, since this isn't going to be the lap that I wanted it to be. Who is the king of GT4s? Well, it appears to be ACC, quite clearly. My props to Kunos again. This is a really good release. I wish you guys would have handed it to me a few weeks prior, like all the other sim races. It really would have helped me not have to rush this video out before I have to go out for the evening, but here we are, it is what it is. Again, got my hands together for you guys. I think a lot of people are really going to enjoy this pack, especially those who aren't quite as into, I guess, the static point and shoot nature of GT3s. The GT4s are a lot more forgiving. You can really munch the curves. Look at that, you can just eat them. Look at that, you just get on there, just make it happen. Do a bit of counter steering. Just have some fun with it, you know? That's what these are all about. And as a great man once said, now that we're crossing the finish line, he who is last should always be sideways and smiling. And to that, Jeremy, I completely salute you. I hope this quick comparison has helped you appreciate what a great state sim racing is in at the moment. Both games coming from different directions, rendering an immensely satisfying racing experience. If you enjoy playing ACC, the GT4 edition is an absolute no-brainer, and if you enjoy the handling model of AMS2, then we'll be looking forward to the future together as they continue to refine and dial in their cars while working to expand their base of content. One last thing we're going to compare here is the look of the cars from exterior cameras as they move around the track. One thing which always fascinated me about AMS2 and the Madness engine, even since the Project Cars 2 days, is how lifelike the motions of the car look from the outside. You can see it conforming to the track, both tyres and springs flexing realistically to maintain a sense of cohesion as the car banks and sways to show which forces are acting on it. Despite a reasonably good driving model, I've always felt ACC to lack these things from exterior shots, which you should hopefully see as we compare the two side by side. If you enjoyed this quick A/B test, be sure to hit the sub and join us for future sim racing content, such as a direct comparison to the upcoming Ferrari 488 GT3 between rFactor 2 and ACC. Until then, we'll see you guys later.